Hello, hello, and welcome to Casting Networks. Thank you for tuning in today. My guest today is Cast 38 film and television project shot in Western Australia. She is an acting coach, treasurer for the Casting Guild of Australia, and a casting director who was recently awarded CGA's Best Casting in a TV Series Award for the drama series The Heights. Please welcome Annie Murtagh-Monks.
Hi, Tommy. It's
Hi.
really lovely to join you
Yeah.
on the other side of the world.
I know, it's so different.
In different time zones.
Yeah, it's nighttime here. I got my cup of coffee so I can, stay perky. And
Wonderful,
and,
wonderful. Well, it's almost midday here for us, so
yeah,
we're a different time zone.
excited to chat with you. I'm always interested because I feel like everyone has a different story around how you got into casting and how you got started with that. So let's start there.
Sure. So I worked as an actor, got accepted into NIDA, which is the National Training Institute, National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney. Trained there, did a 3-year degree in acting, worked as an actor, ended up doing a very lucrative American Express Travelers Check commercial, which gave me the money to go to London and do some postgrad study at RADA,
Wow.
the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. Returned to Australia, worked as an actor, fell in love with a West Australian, and we moved to WA, to Perth in Western Australia. And I told him 2 years tops, couldn't be away from Sydney for longer than that. Yeah. And that was over 30 years ago.
That's how it happens.
It happened. Fell in love with WA and really have been kind of blessed and feel very grateful to be living in this part of the world, particularly now where we have no community COVID-19 spreading, thank God.
That's great.
Yeah, so we're really, our state of Western Australia has been kind of locked down in terms of not allowing people to come in too much, and whenever overseas travellers or people came in, they had to quarantine for 2 weeks. So they've really been able to keep a lid on it, thankfully. And so we're almost back to normal. In fact, in Perth, we had a football game last night and 30,000 people were able to attend.
Wow.
But this is because there is no COVID-19 community spreading, thank God. Wow. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Yeah, no,
I should extrapolate on that.
Yeah.
When I moved to Western Australia, I played a lead role in a TV series with a production company here. And they asked me when they were about to do their next series, they knew I was an acting coach as well. And they asked me if I would cast the next, it was a teenage children TV series. And they asked me if I would cast it. And I hadn't done that before. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a go and see how it goes. And it ended up being a lot of fun, and it did well. And it went into 3 lots of 26 episode series.
Wow.
So they asked me to cast the next one, then the next one. So I took myself off the market as an actor and became a casting director. That's my day job, and also kept working as an acting coach on different projects.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm sure that was intimidating to just, start casting something for the first time. And I know I wouldn't have the guts to do it, but that's exciting that, you get that opportunity and then it turns into something big. And then here you are today, years later, having that, all that experience as a casting director. And that's kind of, now your thing.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And look, I've really, I must admit, I do love it because I get to do what I love doing. I get to work with people who are creative. I get to be involved in storytelling and important stories, and get to work with actors who are lots of fun, and directors and producers. So it is fun. And I must admit that original producer, Paul Barron, who asked me, you know, he was open enough when I said, look, I will have a go at casting, but can I do it my way? In that, can I do it in a way that the children and the people that we audition, I would hate them to leave and feel like they had failed. So if I could do it and structure it in a way, and so we auditioned lots of kids, but I structured it as little group acting lessons, and from that I could see very quickly the ones who showed the potential or possibility to be able to play roles. And then we managed to shortlist down, and I provided training for a core group, and from that core group we cast all our lead and made supporting roles from that. So, you know, I was really grateful that he let me do it in that way on that first series that I cast.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, you know, you said you love it. What are the things that you love about casting? And I'm also curious, what are the things you don't love? I don't want to say hate, but what are the things that you love and things that aren't your favorite thing about casting?
Yeah, look, I suppose as well as having the functional satisfaction of working in an industry that is creative, that's inclusive, increasingly so.
Yeah.
That's really making attempts now to incorporate diversity in a very real way. The joy that I get in being able to see, watch a feature film or a TV series that I cast and see great performances from the actors is a real thrill.
Yeah.
The thing that I don't like so much is knowing how many actors put so much effort and energy and passion into screen tests and auditions and self-tapes, but they don't always end up being cast in something. And that kind of breaks my heart a little bit quite often. But I always keep saying to actors, particularly when I'm lecturing or teaching, a really good screen test is never forgotten. That casting directors really take notice when someone does a great screen test, and it's like we schedule that away for future reference. And time again, I have conversations with producers or directors and discuss actors that we might have thought about or auditioned for a previous project, but now we're able to use them or cast them in a current project.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to know, because sometimes you just get, you know, you have your heart set on that role, right? And you're just like, oh, this is the role. I know I knocked it out of the park, and you don't get it. But if you did, you know, a great screen test, like you said, like casting directors aren't going to just forget about that. There's going to be another role that's going to come up, and like, you know, I remember this one person, and that happens all the time. And so
absolutely.
That's definitely important to know.
And the horrible screen tests are the ones where people really feel like they didn't go well. We forget about those. We just consciously push them out of our memory.
Yeah, you have only so much that you know you can remember when it comes to auditions, especially when you're seeing so many actors. So that makes sense. So I don't know a whole lot about the actor scene in Perth. So I'm curious what that scene is like. And how it compares to like Sydney or Melbourne.
Well, Perth is the most isolated capital city in the world, which right now is a really good thing with COVID-19.
Sure.
But and Western Australia is a large state, so we do have a much smaller scene than, say, Sydney or Melbourne. But I think I would be accurate in saying that skilled actors are able to diversify even a bit more if they're in Western Australia. And by that, I mean a lot of the actors here will not only play roles in theatre, but they'll at times play roles on film and television productions. They might do voiceovers as well. So there's probably a bit more crossover. They do, I suppose, tend to be a big fish in a smaller ocean in that way. But also these days with air travel to be so much easier, a lot of actors now are being bi-coastal. So they're able to send in self-tapes for things that are being shot somewhere else in the country, and they're able to go where they need to go for the work. So that happens a lot. It's really exciting that the most recent series that I was casting director and acting coach on, the Heights TV series, which Matchbox Pictures made for our ABC television station, which is our national broadcaster here. We had a really large number of roles in that. So we ended up shooting 60 episodes. And on the first series of 30 episodes, we had about 120 speaking roles. And all but 5 of those were Western Australian actors, which is great. So we really did draw upon the base here in Western Australia.
That's great.
And yeah, which is really good. I suppose, like most places, a lot of people will graduate from acting school, from WAPA, the WA Academy of Performing Arts, and then they'll feel like they need to automatically relocate to a bigger city. And so they'll often move to Sydney or Melbourne. But when you do have particularly long-running series starting up, people move back at times, which has been a fortuitous thing too.
Yeah, it sounds similar to how it is here in the States. We talked about that with some regional casting directors where they'll be in Atlanta or Florida and the actors are like, oh, I want to go out to LA. Specifically in Atlanta, they're like, well, I know there's a lot that goes on here, but I know I got to be in LA. They're like, there's a good amount of stuff here if you want it. And you have to really ask yourself, do you want to live there? It's not just about like, because I get that question a lot. Like, should I move to LA? Should I move to New York? I was like, maybe you should go there for a little bit, because you might go there and maybe there's more work, but you might not like it. And
yes, and the competition is much greater.
Yeah, exactly.
You're suddenly a smaller fish in a very big ocean,
Yeah. So so that's interesting. And you said you've also worked as an acting coach. So I want to talk about how that's your history with that, and kind of your style and your technique and what.
Sure. Yeah. One of the things that I noticed when I first moved to Western Australia, there was a prevalence that a lot of things that were shot in Western Australia, the majority of those were cast by casting directors who weren't based in WA. And quite often I think those casting directors, naturally enough, would cast actors that they knew and were familiar with from the East Coast, Sydney or Melbourne, and they would be flown over to play the roles. And so a lot of the actors in Perth at that time were predominantly doing theatre and almost solely doing theatre. And what I noticed is that many of them, when it came to doing an audition or screen test for film or TV, they would give a theatre-sized performance. And that was disadvantaging them, I think, quite a lot. And so myself and a colleague who was a director who had trained at the National Film School, Australian Film, Television and Radio School, at the same time that I was training at NIDA, we decided to start a workshop right back in 1992. And we co-founded these PAC workshops where we brought directors and actors into the one workshop to collaborate together and to create screen drama together. And that ended up continuing, where people went on and made films together and really developed collaborations, and writers came into that as well. And so that was one thing that happened way back then. But also in 1996, I started sessional lecturing and guest lecturing at WAPA, the WA Academy of Performing Arts. And I've been doing that ever since as well. So that is a part-time thing, teaching in screen acting. So yeah, that's in that kind of academic sense, but I also work as an acting coach on film and TV productions. So it's been great to be able to do that. And for instance, on The Heights, approximately half of our recurring lead cast had never acted professionally before.
Wow.
Because we've got such a diverse cast and
Yeah.
from very different backgrounds and cultural backgrounds. I ended up training, coaching a lot of those actors who were acting professionally for the first time, and which was, you know, a real joy to be able to do that. And some of those have become such loved characters now in the series, because it's on air in Australia, both available on ABC iView and also screened every week, and it's been picked up by BBC One too in the UK, and it's screening there as well.
Yeah, I checked it out a little bit, and I was really into it because it was it felt very real. It felt like, yeah, I felt like it was something I could relate to. Like I could, you know these characters in real life, and I found it intriguing to watch. So I have a lot of questions about it.
Cool.
So I want you to talk a little bit about The Heights for those who are unfamiliar with it, and a little bit about what it's about, maybe a comparison to an American show if you have that, just so people get a basic idea. I know that's kind of hard, but just to kind of give people an idea of the style of the show and what it's about.
Yeah, look, I can't think of an American show that is the same. There are certainly series in the UK, and you have so many amazing, wonderful series that have a lot of diversity, that deal with characters who are real, who feel very real, and situations and storylines that relate to real events. However, our series is almost a bit like a hybrid in that it's a serial, but it has production values that are closer to a series. So where some of our serials in Australia will shoot 6 episodes a week, we only shot 2 a week. And so it allowed more time. NBC own Matchbox Pictures, and they really helped to fund a long process of development of the scripts, which was wonderful. I think it was the first time I've ever cast a series where all the scripts were written in advance of any pre-production. And of course they were developed and new edits and drafts were done. But to have that kind of financial backing to allow lots of time and effort and care taken with the scripts, I think makes such a huge difference and an impact. So that meant that although we were shooting 60 episodes, it often felt like it was closer to series that are shorter, 6 or 10 episodes, because of the amount of time that had been spent in the development of those characters and the scripts.
Yeah. It's I'm a bit of a softie, so I'm okay to admit that when I watch something that kind of tugs at the heartstrings, I get emotional. So I was definitely one of those where I was just like, oh, I got to be in the right mindset for this. Like, I loved it, and I felt like it was kind of a heartwarming show with a very ambitious casting around it. So like you said, there were all these roles that you had to cast. What lengths did you have to go to cast some of these roles? I'm curious if you have any stories about that, about any particular roles that you had to cast.
So the premise that our our wonderful producers, our showrunner Warren Clark and our producer Peter Bulsara, and also our executive producers from the ABC, they were really passionate about making a series that showed and represented more accurately possibly than had been done before what communities in Australian urban areas really look like. So the premise of the series is that it's a suburb called Arcadia Heights, where you have a very large tower block of what's called housing commission or public housing apartments, where people who are in a lower socioeconomic group or from diverse backgrounds, immigrants, etc., live. And it's in a suburb where there are also really affluent houses being built. And probably every capital city in the Western world has similar areas or suburbs like that, where you actually have this juxtaposition. And what they were looking at and wanting to help portray is the real life drama that's involved with that, and looking at families and storylines and interactions between communities, but not highlight the divisiveness or the horrible bad things of it, but really try to represent how people can actually relate to each other and help each other and support each other at times, but still there being obviously conflict and drama. So part of the brief was that we were going to have a very diverse cast. So we had a range of different families. There were 6 core families. We had a family who were originally refugees. The mother is a single parent mother who had been a refugee from Vietnam, and she was the mother of a university student son. We had a family who were refugees from the Middle East, from Persia, Persian Iranian family. We had an Aboriginal family who were a blended mixed family where the parents were divorced but co-parented the children. We had a character, Sabine, who has cerebral palsy, and of course everything to do with the casting. The producers were passionate about us trying to find actors who were authentic and accurate to what their character was, which posed some wonderful challenges there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And we had kids in the series as well, the children, the offspring of some of those families. So there were those core 6 family groupings, and then there were extended families from some of those, and then there were a whole lot of supporting characters from the community that we had. And we also had a baby as well, and so that baby was, because of the restrictions on how long an infant can be used and filmed, we had to have multiple babies who could play that role, and then have them as they would grow in the series, if you like.
Yeah, that's always a challenge whenever we're watching. My wife and I will watch stuff, and you see that child grow up, and you're like, oh, they look the same, or they look like siblings. I'm always amazed by that, because I'm like, it's not easy to do. No. So that can always.
And I'm really passionate about, well, particularly with some of the characters. It really bugs me when I see family groupings where the actors do not look like they could be the offspring of those adult parents. It always really, it's one of the things that I find difficult. And I loved with the character of Sabine, which we found wonderful, Bridie McKim, who is an actor with disability. She actually has cerebral palsy, and we cast her with another wonderful adult actor who plays her mother, Ros Hammond. And I love that Bridie's actual mum posted on Facebook after the series started, saying, I can't believe that Bridie's television mother looks more like her mother than I do. And she does actually look quite surprisingly like that. But yeah, no, that was good fun. So some of the lengths that I had to go to when I was casting the Iris character, which is the Vietnamese mother who runs a little small general store, I looked all around Australia for a Vietnamese professional actor of that age range, around the 50-year-old mark, and there were none. And I couldn't cast a Eurasian actor in it. You know, my producers were really passionate that they wanted us to find a Vietnamese woman actress to play that. And so I had to end up going out to the Vietnamese community. So I literally went and we let a drop to Vietnamese supermarkets, cafes, restaurants. I emailed the consulate here. The consulate kindly sent out, you know, group emails, Facebook groups, and we ended up having replies from about 55 Vietnamese women who replied. And there's something unique about Vietnamese women. They look way younger than their age, like way younger. I don't know what it is, but, you know, you'd have these 50-year-old Vietnamese women who literally there's no way you'd believe that they were the mother of a of a university student. You know, they looked about 28. Anyway, but we ended up finding Karina, who is this wonderful Vietnamese woman who herself was a refugee. She has an extraordinary story. She had just completed her doctorate, her PhD. She had never acted before, and she came along, did an audition. We actually shortlisted down to 3 Vietnamese women, and I managed to provide some training, some acting coaching for them. And Karina, we ended up casting, and she's done an amazing job. And the other 2 women we'd shortlist, we also managed to cast in the series as her good mates, her best friends in the series as well. So that was a delight. That was really lovely to have that. Our Persian Iranian family, that was also, you know, another challenge to be able to find those actors, but we managed to find fantastic actors for that. And there's also a whole supporting family, including children who I managed to coach, and they are from Persian Iranian background and they speak Farsi, and so that was a thrill to be able to find that in the community here in Western Australia.
Yeah, and that's great, and that realness shines through. You know, one of the reasons it hits home to me is my wife's parents are refugees from Cambodia during the Vietnam War. And so are all her aunts and uncles. And so I've heard stories and I've talked to them. And so there's a lot of that just resonates. And, you know, I have family members with disabilities and that resonates. And so it's just all that realness of that, you know, and you see that, and you see that portrayed, and it's not, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. It's not all about just that, you know, they're a real person, and this is just one aspect of their story in the show. This is one aspect of who they are, but really, like Sabine specifically, you know, she's a girl going to school. It's not just about her disability. That's part of her and part of who she is, but that's not everything.
That's right.
And I love that. I'm curious. So you actually said this, that with the role description for Sabine, that they were specifically looking for someone with cerebral palsy.
Yes. Correct. So the character is written, and I must say that I have a son who is a professional actor, and he is a disabled actor, or an actor with disabilities. And so I myself am very aware of the need for us to include more accurate representations on our screens, because, you know, as Daniel says, you know, when he was growing up, he's gay and disabled, and he didn't see representations of himself on screen very much at all. And so it's so important for us to reflect more accurately what our communities are like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really, I mean, I don't think there's any way that I would have attempted to cast a disabled character with an able-bodied actor when I have the opportunity to. I don't think my son would have forgiven me, and I wouldn't have forgiven me. And one of the things too that is often a challenge is that if people don't see representations of themselves on screen, then they can't see necessarily a potential career path for themselves. And it's harder for them to then spend their money and time and passion in developing their skills in that area. And so it's a chicken or an egg. If you don't have enough actors with disability, or for instance, we had, we cast trans actors in and LGBTQI actors in the series. And if you don't actually have lots of opportunities for those actors, then they're obviously going to not be able to get the training that's needed. Once you start having those representations, then people can see a pathway, and then they can commit to developing their skills, and therefore you have more skilled options in when you're trying to cast those roles. So yeah, I think it's something that is ongoing. I think the UK certainly have done exceptionally well in that area. I know my son ended up moving to London because there are a lot more opportunities for him as an actor with disabilities there, and he's just been performing on the West End in a lead role opposite Emilia Clarke, and the West End shut down 3 nights before their opening night, tragically. But he ended up being cast in a role that has normally been written as an able-bodied role, and he's playing it, and it's incidental that he has hemiplegia and he is disabled. And he'd also played a lead role on a modern version of Richard III called Teenage Dick at the Malthouse, at one of the major theatres in London too.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is quite the time difference though. So I'm sure, it's hard to connect on that. But I think that really resonates, and that's true that, if you don't see people that are like you on screen, then you go like, well, how many opportunities are there for me? And so you need to see more. And when I spoke with Nike recently in Seattle, casting director, she mentioned that, it's frustrating to get, the script and where they're looking for a more diverse cast. It's like, well, there haven't been as many diverse roles up until this. So it's going to be hard to find people with the experience that you're looking for, because there haven't been as many opportunities. So it's like you talked about, it's the chicken or the egg thing. But the first thing is getting those more and more opportunities out there, and thinking a little bit more outside the box when it comes to casting, which definitely this project did. Would you say, going back to Sabine, so this character who feels they're genuine, they feel like a real person, is that a good example of just in general what a casting director is looking for when they're looking to cast, and when you're auditioning actors in the room? Is you're looking for an actor that just feels real and feels like a real person that you would come across in real life?
Well, certainly for a project like The Heights, yes, because authenticity was one of the major priorities for the series, and the scripts reflected that. In fact, we just had a lovely post on Facebook today from Kate Hood, who is a wonderful advocate for actors with disabilities, and she was commenting on the episode that screened last night of The Heights, and this is one of the episodes, and one of only one of the 60 episodes where it actually did focus on the fact of Sabine's disability, and the fact that she was struggling because she had been cast in a school play of Pygmalion, and she was finding it particularly challenging with her disability to get in and out of her costume in a short period of time. And so she was going to withdraw from the play. And they really looked at the whole issue of ableism and how if you set the parameters for disabled people to be the same as able-bodied people, then you're almost sabotaging them, and it's ableist to do that. And this was, look, this is the first time I've seen something like that addressed in a television series, a drama series, where they're actually even talking about this. Similarly, a few weeks ago, it was just so beautiful to watch an episode where one of the characters had an unwanted pregnancy. She was married, she'd split up with her husband, and she was struggling, and she ended up having a termination. And they did it in such a sensitive and honest and real way. And they addressed the kinds of real life struggle or challenge that a woman in that situation has, and the decision that she has to have. You know, so things like that, I have huge admiration to our producers, to our writing team, and for the ABC for commissioning this series, because it was, you know, it was wanting to look at real life drama rather than, you know, bombs going off or people shooting people up or stuff like that, you know.
It's gutsy, and I'm sure there's a lot of like, you know, do people want to see this, or do people want to see explosions? You know what I mean? So it's like that realness, you know, I think people are hungry for it because it's so rare, and it's just, it's so different than what you see all the time. And tackling those real world issues is, I don't know. I think it's remarkable and eye-opening. So I love to see stuff like
Thank
that
you.
personally. So
yeah, it is exciting.
So every actor knows that you need good headshots, you need your reel, you need your resume. Okay, outside of that, what are some things that I need, or what are some things that you're looking for from an actor when, you know, you're casting a project?
Good question. I think what's really important is that people never stop learning. I don't stop learning. I am still involved now. I'm learning and increasing my skills in the area of intimacy coordinating, because I think it's such an important area. So I'm doing courses, and I've done some in person with a wonderful teacher who is an intimacy coordinator in London, Ita O'Brien, and have done some in Australia with her, and also went to London to do more. And I'm continuing that with her via Zoom. I think for actors, I think a danger is if you do a course and then feel like that's it, I'm a trained actor and I don't need anything more.
I got all the skills, I'm good to go.
Yeah, then I do think that I think that can be to your disadvantage, only because I think you can become set in your ways, or you don't grow as much as a creative artist. Most artists throughout time, and I do believe that actors are definitely artists, and what they're creating it's an art. So like any art form, the more you keep experimenting and learning, you know, the more you're able to develop your skill in that area. So there's that. Other than that, I have to say now in the whole COVID-19 zeitgeist, the reality is now that both the Casting Guild of Australia and our and casting directors in the US have suggested, our guilds have suggested that self-tapes are going to be really the new abnormal, in that, well, it's not really that abnormal. I think all of us were receiving self-tapes up to this point, and their technology is now on the actor's side. When I graduated from acting school 100 years ago, none of my fellow actors, none of us could afford a video camera. They were gigantic big things that cost a fortune,
Right.
you know, and now you can film your self-tape on your smartphone, you can film it on an iPad, you can film it so easily. And I have to say that websites like Casting Networks just make things so easy for casting directors. And I'm not saying that just because you're with Casting Network.
I appreciate it, but you know,
No, it's a
wouldn't say that
reality.
if it wasn't true.
Yeah, and you know, our casting guild decided, our executive decided we really wanted to do something to help actors in this time of coronavirus lockdown, to try and help them. And so we instigated, with the help of Casting Networks, a self-tape library where we put out, and actors in Australia and New Zealand could submit a self-tape of their choosing, and we have uploaded them all. We had over 3,000, and we've managed to process them all, view them, upload them, and that is now a resource for all the casting director members of our casting guild, which is really fantastic because it gives people who are with agents, ones who are freelance, ones who are from diverse backgrounds, from diverse cultural backgrounds, you know, a whole range of people, the opportunity to send in a self-tape and to be able to then be in the running for roles. Yeah. So I would say a super important skill for actors these days is to develop your skill at recording self-tapes.
Yeah, and it's you know, there's still some people that are great actors but don't know how to self-tape. So it's a great thing to kind of work with a fellow actor, maybe send that to them, maybe send it to your agent, say, what do you think about this? So that you can get really good at that, because those great self-tapes stand out, especially when you have to go through a bunch. So
absolutely.
You don't want to have that that vertical self-tape or whatever else. It just looks bad.
It's really not hard. You know, it's, once you are able to adjust to the technology and a few simple rules, and just about every casting director, well, all of my colleagues are really happy to send people the kind of information how to, and also in Australia on YouTube, Pearl Tan, who is a lovely actor and director, she created a series of short how-to videos for MEAA, our Media Entertainment and Arts Alliance, Actors Equity, and actors can go online and find those and view them, and they're really simple short videos on how to create your self-tape. So there's a lot of information out there to help. On the Heights, we managed to receive a lot of self-tapes from people, which was great, and that became a whole database for us for when we were casting all those 60 episodes, because even when an actor auditioned for one of the lead recurring roles, if they weren't cast in that, time and again we were looking back at their screen test and being able to then cast them for another role in the series, or a guest role, or a role that would be over several episodes. You know.
Oh, that's great. So self-tape, very important. What about social media? This comes up a lot where people are like, what do I need to do with my social media? We had a whole thing with TSMA about that as well. But like, what's your opinion? How important is social media for an actor and a presence?
I personally think that you will be cast in something because of your acting ability and because of how appropriate you are for the role, in being able to bring to life the character that is part of the story and the storytelling. I don't think social media has, for me and for us in Australia, it is not a big thing. And I know a lot of actors get quite, they feel like they have to promote themselves, and if they promote themselves, they will then be cast in roles. That's not my experience.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever cast an actor because they've printed off their business card and handed it out to me. You know,
Right.
you're only ever as good as your last screen test or the last role you've played. You know,
Yeah.
It's kind of a reality that look, there might be some networks or distributors, some producers who are concerned with that because of the possible marketing options. But it's it's your acting ability that's going to land you the role.
Yeah.
So
like
invest
that.
in that rather than too much of the
Rather than
social
tweeting 100
media
times a day. Yeah, as
I
long
would
as
say.
if it's you know, overwhelming your life and you're trying to build it up that way, probably not the best use of your time, just in general, not even just for acting.
Yeah, true.
Do you like when actors reach out to you and tell you what they're working on or send you a postcard, that sort of thing?
I don't mind it. I was an actor myself once, so you know, it doesn't bother me. Certainly, if it's something that if it's that they're about to appear in, and often when agents will send me and let me know that their actors are about to appear in something, I'll make sure I watch that and can see that performance. So yeah,
Okay.
certainly. And you know, to be perfectly honest, it's a lot easier now than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago, because we can now do searches on platforms like casting networks for specific attributes that we need, and we can look and search for. So if we're looking for, you know, an actor who speaks Vietnamese, or if we're looking for an actor who can ride a horse, or if we're looking for an actor who has also done gymnastics or whatever, then we can put those searches in which help. But yeah, it never bothers me if someone sends that. What is a little challenging is often when you get, as you know, I'm sure most people in my industry who work professionally do, when you get kind of hundreds of emails a day, and then you get an email from an actor who you don't necessarily know very well, who wants you to explain to them what the industry's like and what roles are coming up and what projects I'm working on. You know, I often just don't physically have the time to be able to, you know, share that kind of information.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good general rule, that if you're emailing anybody, have something to say, and have a reason why you're calling or emailing them, as opposed to just like, hey, this is who I am. You know, it's not enough there.
And tell me what's happening.
Tell me what's happening in the industry.
Tell me what roles you're casting that I would be suitable for. It's kind of like,
So are there things like that drive you crazy that actors do? Are what are some things? I don't like the term pet peeve, but what are some things that actors do?
I do have one.
Let's hear it.
And I don't know whether this is the case. I don't think it's the case in the US, but in Australia, there's this weird thing where people get confused as to actors' agents and casting directors, and they'll often call casting agents, they'll refer to. And my colleagues who are casting directors don't call themselves casting agents, because an agent always receives a commission from what the actor earns. A casting director doesn't. We are hired by the production, by the producer or the director, to find the best possible actors for a role. We liaise with theatrical agents or actors' agents. We will often brief them about a project and certainly say to them if there are actors that they represent who they think might be suitable. We will usually also know ourselves the actors who we think would be ideal to audition or screen test. But people seem to often use casting agent as a term, and
I hear that too. Yeah.
we don't call ourselves casting agents. So we call
Right.
ourselves casting directors or casting consultants, because it is a different role. And I think some people actually do get quite confused as to the difference between an agent and an actor's agent or theatrical agent represents and works on behalf of the actor. And they only make money usually when that actor earns money as an actor, and
Right.
they receive a commission from that, you know, a part of that. So
Yes.
yeah,
No more using that term. Get rid of it. There's no casting agents. Well, that's wonderful. Well, we've hit time, so I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. I hope that everything stays the way that it is in Western Australia and no more COVID cases. I wish that was the case here, but as everyone can see in the news, we're just, we're working through it.
Anyone who wants to come and film in WA, we are very open. And in fact, our Prime Minister just announced today that they're instigating a $400 million fund to encourage overseas productions to come and film in Australia. So if any of your listeners are thinking of where's a good place to go that's safe, where I'm not going to die from coronavirus, Australia's a good spot for it.
Might be a good place. Just don't bring it with you from the US, I guess.
Exactly. You might have to quarantine for 2 weeks, but hey, there's nice places you can do that.
That's the one. Awesome. So thank you so much again for doing
welcome.
this. Hopefully we'll talk more soon. Stay safe and
Thank
see you later.
Tommy, and all the best.
All the best. Bye.